Hello everyone, I am your news anchor, Yali. Welcome back to our channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hurry up and click the subscribe button. Recently, China's Minister of Commerce, Wang Wentao, made peace with U.S. Commerce Secretary Raymond, and is expected to meet U.S. Trade Representative Dai Chi, which is seen as a thermometer for the warmth and coolness of Sino-U.S. relations. However, as if a piece of ice was suddenly thrown into the steaming dumpling pot, President Biden recently indicated that he was lifting sanctions on Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu, but the U.S. State Department immediately clarified that there was no such thing, and the sanctions were still in place. I feel like this is like playing a large-scale version of hide and seek, or you could call it the international relations version of cat and mouse. What do you think? In the business sector, we all know that business is like a game, with wins and losses, ups and downs. For example, China and the United States, one is the largest producer of goods, and the other is the largest consumer of goods. They push and pull each other on the table of trade policies, amusing each other. At the APEC meeting, not only the United States, but also union leaders called for a new trade balance with China. It seems that everyone wants a share of China's big bowl of noodles. Speaking of which, let's also take a look at ourselves. The president of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, Woodcock, said, "Trade promotes change." This slogan has been realized, but what has changed is us. At this point, I can't help but laugh and cry. What on earth is this trade that can make us change ourselves? There have also been some movements in the South China Sea recently. China has set up 3 light buoys in the South China Sea, which seems to be a response to the 5 navigation buoys dropped by the Philippines 2 weeks ago. Some people worry that this may trigger a new conflict, but I want to say, can such small movements really be intimidating? Let's take a look at a puzzling case. 2 residents of Los Angeles are accused of bribing U.S. officials on behalf of the Chinese government. Oh, it seems bribery truly knows no borders. On the other side of the ocean, the British government has released a semi-annual report on Hong Kong, urging Beijing to repeal the Hong Kong national security law and expressing concern about the case of Jimmy Lai. However, some people think that such actions are too gentle to prevent the regression of the rule of law in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government's response was, "We strongly oppose such malicious slander. When we are playing online games, Chinese hackers may be playing a real network game." Security analysts predict that if China invades Taiwan, they may first invade the U.S. military network and other key infrastructure. Let's see, are Chinese hackers really that amazing? Next, let's talk about Kenya in Africa, where a heated verbal battle seems to be underway. The Kenyan government and Reuters are at loggerheads on an issue, just like the rooster who has forgotten its original intention. Was the Kenyan government website attacked by Chinese hackers? Kenya says this is fake news, while Reuters insists it's true. What I want to ask is, which side are you on? The German parliament is considering restricting former military personnel from serving other countries, as this poses a threat to Germany's national security. This move is likely a response to reports of China recruiting foreign fighter pilots. It seems that the recruitment of pilots has made the Germans a bit nervous. The Speaker of the Czech House of Representatives, Adamová, recently led a delegation to visit Washington, saying that when talking about the threat of Russia and China, Russia is like a tornado. The world has already seen the devastation of the storm, and has become more alert. China is like climate change, difficult to detect but with a more far-reaching impact. Czech President Pavel said at the Copenhagen Democracy Summit that in the long run, China is more dangerous than Russia, and China seeks not equal cooperation with equal partners, but global dominance. It seems that the contradictions between China and foreign countries are increasing. Before Chinese envoy Li Wei visited Moscow, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Medvedev expressed his hope that the outcome of the Ukrainian conflict would be to cede the western part of Ukraine to Poland and the eastern part to Russia. At the same time, the EU is earnestly advising China to pressure Russia to withdraw from the invasion of Ukraine. German foreign ministry officials called on China to use its influence on Moscow to play a constructive role in ending the war between Ukraine and Russia as soon as possible. It seems that China's diplomatic situation is quite complicated. However, according to a poll by Tsinghua University's Center for Strategic and Security Studies, nearly 70% of Chinese people believe that China's security situation is improving and will continue for the next 5 years. Most respondents believe that the United States has the greatest impact on China's security, and Chinese people have the highest regard for Russia. This result is somewhat puzzling to us. Dr. Feng Changyi, Associate Professor of China Studies at the University of Technology Sydney, said that closing the dialogue is Xi Jinping's style and line. He treats the contradiction between China and the United States as a friend and enemy, and the main tune as struggle and wolf warrior. Now he is in dialogue with the United States because he wants to break through the Western blockade. It seems that China's political style is still quite tough. Although China claims to uphold a stance of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs, it is a common practice for China to subtly interfere in other countries by influencing them through economic penetration on one hand and accusing them of interfering in China's internal affairs on the other. The evolution of China is determined by the expansionary nature of the CCP's ideology, stagnant economy, and irreversible globalization. This evolution not only profoundly affects the politics of other countries but will also deeply intervene in people's lives. Let's talk about the candidates for the 2024 Taiwan presidential election. Does China have a favored candidate for Taiwan's next president? Some analysts suggest that Beijing may not be familiar with Hu Yui of the Kuomintang and may equate him with former President Lee Teng-hui. By contrast, Beijing may prefer Taiwan's third force, the People's Party's Ko Wen-je. Oh, this is a bit like a suitor picking their desired match. Choices are always so difficult, aren't they? Taiwan has pledged to gradually abolish the death penalty, but experts believe that progress has been too slow in recent years. The executive director of the Together Against the Death Penalty, ECPM, organization in France told us that Taiwan should speed up the abolition of capital punishment and demonstrate different democratic values from China. Wow, it's like we're on the field, helping the competitors sprint together. Another piece of news worth mentioning is that Taiwan received a special gift from the United States, a batch of FIM-92 Stinger portable air defense missiles. This gift seems both aesthetically pleasing and practical, but it seems to have caused some headaches for many people, doesn't it? The Executive Yuan of Taiwan has sent notifications to various ministries and agencies stating that mainland Chinese people do not have the nationality of the Republic of China and are not citizens, so they do not enjoy or bear related rights and obligations. This clarification also applies to mainland Chinese people, and it should cease to be applicable starting today. It is reported that 5 years ago, a mainland Chinese man unfortunately died while traveling in Taiwan, and the Kaohsiung District Court had previously invoked the above provisions to make a compensation ruling. The latest statement from the Executive Yuan of Taiwan has sparked heated public debate. Does this mean that the conflict between the Republic of China and China has escalated again? Recently, the chairman of the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, McCaul, led a congressional delegation to visit Taiwan. After witnessing Taiwan's defense capabilities, he stated that Taiwan is not yet at the level they need to be prepared. In response to the Chinese government's sanctions against him after his visit to Taiwan, he said that, in his view, it is like receiving a Medal of Honor. The Japanese government announced that new regulations restricting the export of semiconductor manufacturing equipment will officially take effect on July 23. The new rules do not specifically target China but restrict 160 countries, including China, accounting for about 30% of China's semiconductor manufacturing equipment exports. Let's take a look at Hong Kong together. Uyghur students who disappeared after entering Hong Kong are suspected to have been extradited to mainland China. Amnesty International has called on the Hong Kong government to account for their whereabouts. After the establishment of the organ transplantation mutual assistance mechanism between China and Hong Kong, there has been a significant cancellation of organ donations by Hong Kong residents. Does this mean that the conflict between China and Hong Kong has escalated again? It's like characters in a family drama constantly arguing, with twists and turns in the plot. Looking at the entertainment industry in mainland China, the punishment of stand-up comedians is part of the rectification of chaos in the entertainment sector. I often imagine that in the West, you can freely satirize politics and political leaders, while our stand-up comedy is only allowed to revolve around trivial matters of life and current events, avoiding politically sensitive topics. It feels like walking on a tightrope, doesn't it? If you enjoy my style of stand-up comedy, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. In fact, Chinese investments are also a topic we cannot ignore. Contemporary Amperex Technology Company, Limited, CATL, a Chinese new energy company, has invested 7.3 billion euros in an electric vehicle battery factory in Hungary. Just think about it, how massive of a project is that? However, the project has faced opposition from the public, environmentalists, and opposition politicians. Well, investment is like wanting to eat cake without gaining weight, easier said than done. However, China's first high-speed rail technology export project, the Jakarta-Bandung High-Speed Railway in Indonesia, is expected to start operations in June. It seems that China has achieved some success in infrastructure construction through overseas investment. However, the project has accumulated debts of over $1 billion. How will it be dealt with? Is China willing to bear the entire burden? Originally, the majority of the over $5 billion came from loans from the China Development Bank, which also needs profits to be repaid. Speaking of China's overseas debt, Xi Jinping sees Zambia as a traditional and all-weather friend. However, in recent years, Zambia has fallen into a debt crisis, with China holding $1.3 billion of its external debt. The United States criticized Beijing for not providing debt relief in its time of need. China is concerned that implementing debt relief for Zambia may lead to similar requests from other African countries. China's position is for multilateral creditors, including the World Bank and IMF, to jointly provide debt relief. Like the investor who took a spicy in the stock market, the rising trend in the Hong Kong stock market has disappeared like a sneeze. All the gains since early December last year have vanished, buoyed by China's reopening of the economy. The following data may surprise you. China's unemployment rate among young people aged 16 to 24 in April was as high as 20.4%, the highest on record. You might wonder, how is that possible? It's like getting on a car with faulty brakes. It may seem interesting, but the result is not great. To make the data look better, some universities require graduates to sign flexible employment agreements, including self-employment and freelancing, so that they can be counted as employed in the statistics. Ford's CEO also stated that China is their biggest competitor, not General Motors or Toyota. It seems that China's economic strength is gradually expanding like a bubble. Let's turn to the COVID-19 pandemic. The resurgence of COVID-19 in China is coming back like dark clouds. Zhang Nanshan predicted that by the end of May 2023, the peak number of infections per week could reach 40 million, and by the end of June, it could reach around 65 million. It sounds like a warning before a storm, but the Wall Street Journal reported today that the Chinese people are embodying the ancient wisdom of treating the pandemic as a meal, and facing the arrival of a new wave of COVID-19 calmly. This makes us both admire their resilience and feel sorry for their numbness. Let's take another look at China's population issue. The number of births this year may be less than 8 million, resembling a suspenseful movie. Could it be that our protagonists have been too busy dealing with the new normal and have neglected the issue of fertility? Perhaps this is a problem that needs further attention. Next, let's talk about some recent actions by the Chinese government. They have introduced a list for the construction of elderly care services, but it seems to be a lukewarm initiative. The one-child policy's expectations for contributing to the nation are not very high. People feel that these benefits are like candies held in front of their mouths, visible but out of reach. Moreover, this hasn't changed the fact that China ranks 107th out of 170 countries in The Economist's assessment of national welfare. Next is news that makes investors' hearts race. Statistics from Fujian have been closed off to overseas tracking. Since March, the data published on Fujian's official website has become a key indicator for overseas financial research institutions tracking China's economy. It's like that candy that is always hidden. You know it's there, but you can't find it. Lastly, let's take a look at the news about the June 4th Memorial Hall. Young people are actively participating in the preparations, bringing a breath of fresh air that penetrates the haze created by the Communist Party's attempt to erase history. The Tiananmen mothers reiterated their 3 demands for truth, compensation, and accountability, like an uncompromising song, but the impact seems to be not very apparent. You must have seen those luxury brand stores shining with glamour, consumers carrying shopping bags bigger than your husky. This is luxury consumption, a driving force behind China's post-pandemic economic recovery. But it reminds me of an old saying, there is always someone better. And China's officials seem to be dancing in the sky right now, especially with the recent building collapse in Changsha. It's a small challenge for them, like dancing on thin ice, always cautious. Next, we turn to the AI battlefield in China, resembling a scene from a science fiction novel, where 2 major tech companies have clashed over a short essay written by artificial intelligence. iFlytek attributed the decline in its stock price to false information spread by generative AI, and its father, Baidu, stated that it will take legal action against such malicious defamation. I must say, the smell of gunpowder in this war is getting stronger. The good news is that Chinese cuisine is becoming popular in Japan, whether it's Shaanxi snacks, Sichuan hot pot, or Shanghai-style white-cut chicken, they are making Japanese taste buds tremble. Can you imagine a group of Japanese people shaking their heads while eating hot pot? However, at the same time, we also need to pay attention to the news of a 15-year-old Chinese girl developing anorexia due to excessive weight loss, which has sparked heated discussions on social media. Speaking of a debt collection company in Hunan, Yongshang, announcing its closure, some might say it's good news, while others might say it's bad news. After all, opinions on debt collection companies may vary. The Shanghai government has begun taking measures to combat discrimination, which makes one feel like Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream is slowly becoming a reality in Shanghai. On the other hand, a vice dean from Guangxi University of Science and Technology fled into a women's restroom after drunk driving. You might think, that was a clever decision. Well, this clever person has now been dismissed and is under investigation by the university's disciplinary committee. That's today's news update. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.